The Galactic Council's chamber was a spectacle of cosmic grandeur, a domed structure that seemed to stretch endlessly, its walls shimmering with shifting hues of light from stars beyond the galaxy. Delegates from thousands of species filled the circular tiers, their forms as diverse as the worlds they hailed from. Some had elongated, crystalline bodies that refracted light like prisms, others were amorphous, floating beings surrounded by shimmering energy fields. The air buzzed with low murmurs and flashes of bioluminescence, translating into language through embedded neural translators. This was not just a council, it was the universe's collective voice. In the center, a vast holographic projection depicted the Milky Way, with sectors blinking in red, territories where the Draken Imperium had swept through in brutal conquests. At the head of the assembly stood the representative of the Andran Order, a tall, multi-limbed being whose every movement exuded grace. Their voice resonated through the hall, deep and commanding, enhanced by the chamber's acoustic amplification system. The Draken Imperium's relentless expansion now threatens Sector Epsilon 12. We have reason to believe their next target is humanity, a species that, despite their relative youth, has shown remarkable resilience in recent conflicts. A ripple of reactions coursed through the chamber. Some representatives exchanged wary glances, others let out guttural laughs or dismissive chirps. Humanity, though intriguing, was still considered insignificant by many in the galactic hierarchy. But those who had encountered them knew otherwise. A shimmering figure materialized at the center, a hologram of King Zorath himself. His presence alone demanded attention. Towering, with scales that glistened like molten metal and eyes that burned with an inner flame, Zorath exuded power and arrogance. His voice, a deep, resonant growl, cut through the murmurs. "Humans," he sneered, elongating the word as though tasting its insignificance. "A species of scavengers, bound to a fragile planet, scraping by with primitive technologies. They are no match for the Draken Imperium. Do not underestimate them, Zorath," came a voice from the tiers. It was the delegate of the Zervans, a species renowned for their vast archives of galactic history. Their translucent, jelly-like form pulsed as they spoke. "They have survived threats far beyond their capacity. Time and again, they have turned desperation into innovation. You would do well to tread carefully." Zora scoffed, his scaled lip curling. "Innovation? Is that what you call their crude attempts to mimic advanced species? They are insects beneath our boots, and I will crush them accordingly." The Enderan leader stepped forward, their calm demeanor belying the weight of their words. "We are not here to debate humanity's merits, King Zorath. This is a warning. They are more than they appear. If you push them too far, they will surprise you, and not in ways you can predict." The Draken King's hologram flared brighter, a display of dominance. "Warnings from bureaucrats mean nothing to me. The Imperium grows stronger with every conquest. Humanity will be no different. Let them rally, let them resist, it will make their eventual subjugation all the sweeter." Whispers broke out across the chamber. Some species openly voiced their disapproval, while others remained silent, their body language inscrutable. The Zervan delegate turned their glowing gaze to the Enderan leader. "You have given him the warning. He will ignore it." "Indeed," the Enderan replied solemnly. "And he will face the consequences." A new projection emerged, this time highlighting humanity's recent victories, small, isolated conflicts against minor aggressors. Yet each time, they had emerged victorious, often against all odds. In one instance, they had used outdated orbital platforms to outmaneuver a technologically superior fleet. In another, they had turned a barren moon into a tactical advantage, luring their enemies into a trap. The Council had watched these events unfold, curious and increasingly wary of this emerging species. But Zorath saw none of this as a threat. To him, it was the flailing of a desperate species, nothing more. He dismissed the projection with a flick of his clawed hand, the holographic display dissolving into static. "Enough of this fearmongering. The Imperium will proceed as planned. Humanity will kneel, just as countless others have." As his hologram faded, the chamber fell silent. The Enderan leader surveyed the assembly, their many eyes reflecting a hint of unease. "We have done what we could. Now the burden rests with the humans. A low hum resonated through the room, signaling the session's adjournment. Delegates began to depart, their forms shimmering or gliding away in their various modes of travel. Yet, as they left, a singular phrase from the Zervan representative lingered in the air, spoken in a tone of quiet finality. They warned the Draken Imperium once before. Their king chose to ignore it. He will learn, as others have, that humanity does not fight fair. They fight to win. The news of the Draken Imperium's imminent invasion spread like wildfire across Earth and its colonies. Broadcasts filled the airwaves, each message carrying the same grim warning: the Draken fleet is coming. World leaders, scientists, and military commanders gathered in hurried meetings, their faces etched with determination and fear. Humanity had faced threats before, but nothing like this. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a battle for existence. At the heart of the preparations was Commander Elena Sato, a decorated officer of Earth's Unified Defense Force. Her piercing gaze swept over the holographic table in the war room, where the projection of the Draken fleet loomed like a storm cloud. The enemy's ships, sleek and enormous, were far beyond anything humanity could match. Each vessel bristled with advanced weaponry capable of leveling entire cities. Against this, Earth's fleet looked pitiful, older models retrofitted with whatever technology they could scavenge or improve. Let me be clear. Elena addressed her team, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. We cannot outgun them, and we cannot outlast them. But we can outthink them. If we play this right, we can make them regret ever setting their sights on us. In a nearby laboratory, young engineer Ravi Patel worked tirelessly alongside his team. Their task was daunting: take humanity's outdated systems and make them a match for an enemy centuries ahead in technological evolution. Ravi's hands trembled as he calibrated a modified electromagnetic pulse device. The idea had been his. Using scavenged Draken tech from a crashed scout ship, they were attempting to create a weapon capable of disrupting the enemy's shields. The science wasn't perfect, and failure could mean disaster, but they didn't have the luxury of time. How's it coming, Ravi? Asked Dr. Mayachin, the project lead. Her tone was gentle but firm, her eyes betraying her exhaustion. Not great, Ravi admitted, wiping sweat from his brow. The power core keeps overloading. If this goes wrong, we could blow ourselves up before the Drakens even get here. Then fix it, Maya said, placing a hand on his shoulder. We're counting on you. If we can even knock out one of their ships, it'll be a victory. Elsewhere, civilian populations prepared for the worst. Families huddled in underground shelters, converting basements and subway systems into makeshift bunkers. On the Martian colony of New Dawn, 12-year-old Ellie Novak listened as her father, a retired pilot, explained what was happening. His voice was calm, but the tremor in his hands as he adjusted the filtration system betrayed his fear. Are they going to kill us? Ellie asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her father knelt down, looking her in the eye. Not if we fight back. And we will, Ellie. Humanity always fights back. The Draken fleet arrived sooner than expected, their ships cutting through the void like predatory beasts. They struck without warning, targeting orbital platforms and defense stations. Their attack was surgical, ruthless, and devastating. Entire cities were reduced to ash in moments. But humanity did not crumble. On Earth's moon, Commander Sato's forces launched a countermeasure. Using the moon's natural craters as cover, they ambushed a Draken landing party with a fleet of small, agile fighters. The fighters were no match for Draken ships in a direct confrontation, but they didn't need to be. Equipped with old-fashioned kinetic weapons and piloted by fearless men and women, they swarmed the larger vessels, striking weak points in the hulls. Target their engines! Don't let them regroup! Sato barked through the comms. Her orders were precise, her strategies daring. The Drakens, used to overwhelming their enemies with superior firepower, found themselves caught off guard by the humans' relentless assault. On the ground, guerrilla warfare erupted. In the dense forests of Southeast Asia, small human squads used drones and camouflage to outmaneuver Draken patrols. They hacked into enemy communications, planting false data to lure the invaders into traps. In the urban ruins of Paris, civilians turned the city into a maze of ambush points, using improvised explosives and sniper fire to keep the Drakons on edge. One such group, led by Captain Marisol Vega, became the stuff of legend. Trapped behind enemy lines with only a handful of soldiers, Marisol orchestrated a campaign of sabotage that delayed an entire Drakon battalion for days. When she was finally extracted, her only words were, "We're not done yet." Ravi's team made their breakthrough just as hope began to waver. The EMP device was ready, though untested in combat. With no other options, the weapon was deployed during a pivotal battle near Jupiter. The Drakon fleet had encircled the last major human outpost in the system, their victory seemingly inevitable. But as they closed in, a single modified cargo ship flew straight into their formation, broadcasting an unencrypted signal. To any Drakon listening, the pilot's voice crackled. "This is humanity's answer." The EMP detonated, releasing a burst of energy that rippled through the enemy fleet. Drakon shields flickered and died, leaving their ships vulnerable. Human forces, waiting in the wings, surged forward. Armed with projectile weapons that didn't rely on electronic systems, they tore into the exposed Drakon ships, crippling several before the enemy could recover. The victory was costly. Hundreds of human lives were lost, but it was a victory nonetheless. For the first time, the Drakons realized that humanity would not be easily crushed. In the aftermath of the battle, Ravi stood in the control room, staring at the reports of the damage they had inflicted. He should have felt triumphant, but all he could think about were the lives lost in the effort. Maya placed a hand on his shoulder. "They fought because you gave them a chance," she said softly. "That's what matters." Across the galaxy, the story of humanity's defiance began to spread. The Drakons had expected submission, but instead they had found a species that refused to back down, no matter the cost. For every city destroyed, 100 humans rose to fight. For every loss, a new strategy was born. In the Galactic Council chambers, whispers of humanity's resilience reached even the most skeptical species. "Perhaps the humans are not as weak as we thought," one delegate murmured. The Enderan representative, who had warned Zorith, simply nodded. The Drakons, however, were far from finished. And humanity knew this was only the beginning. But as Eli Novak's father had said, humanity always fights back. And now, they had proven it. King Zorith paced the command deck of his flagship, his claws clicking against the polished obsidian floor. The massive viewport before him displayed Earth, its blue and green surface dotted with storms, still defiant despite the havoc his fleet had unleashed. Reports of unexpected losses filled the air, projected by trembling subordinates who dared not look him in the eye. Zorith's fiery gaze swept across them, his voice a low growl that made the entire chamber tremble. "Explain to me," he snarled, "how an inferior species, clinging to outdated machines and primitive tactics, continues to cause such disruptions." A Drakon tactician stepped forward hesitantly, his spined crest flattening in submission. "Their methods are unorthodox, my king. They exploit weaknesses we did not anticipate. Their fighters do not act with logic, they act with desperation." "Desperation," Zorith hissed, his scaled lips curling into a sneer. "And yet their desperation has cost us 3 cruisers and an entire battalion. Enough excuses. We will show them the price of defiance." Zorith's frustration grew with each passing day. Humanity's resistance wasn't just persistent, it was infuriatingly clever. They struck from the shadows, leveraging terrain and guerrilla tactics to offset their technological inferiority. Small bands of human ships harassed Drakon supply lines, while ground forces planted traps that turned entire cities into death zones for the invaders. Even when outgunned, humans fought with a reckless ingenuity that disrupted his meticulously planned campaign. For Zorith, each setback was a bruise to his ego. In his mind, humanity's victories were not triumphs of strategy but flukes born of desperation. His pride refused to accept otherwise. "They are an infestation," he proclaimed to his war council. "And like all infestations, they must be eradicated." Determined to break their spirit, Zorath escalated his tactics. He ordered his forces to target human civilian centers, places of cultural and strategic importance. Cities like New Tokyo, the Martian capital of Red Horizon, and the massive orbital station Olympus Prime became battlegrounds where no life was spared. Draken bombardments left smoking craters in their wake, hoping to shatter humanity's will to resist. The galaxy watched in horror as Zorath's cruelty escalated, but still, humanity did not falter. For every city destroyed, humanity's resolve only hardened. On Earth, Commander Elena Sato addressed her troops and the civilian population via global broadcast. Her voice carried strength, defiance, and a sense of unity that galvanized all who heard her. They think they can break us by destroying what we've built. They don't understand that our strength is not in our cities or our technology, it's in us. We may be outnumbered, but we are not outmatched. Together we will fight, and together we will win. Her words sparked a wave of renewed determination. Across the colonies and Earth, humanity's resistance grew fiercer. Engineers like Ravi worked day and night, creating makeshift weaponry from the wreckage of fallen Draken ships. Civilians joined the fight in unprecedented numbers, forming militias and sabotage teams that wreaked havoc on enemy supply lines. On the battlefield, human soldiers pushed beyond exhaustion, their ingenuity and grit earning them small but critical victories. The turning point came during the Battle of the Stratosphere, a desperate clash above Earth's atmosphere. Zorath had ordered an overwhelming assault, deploying a fleet twice the size of humanity's remaining forces. It was meant to be a decisive strike, the final crushing blow. But humanity had prepared for this. Using technology reverse-engineered from captured Draken devices, Ravi and his team developed a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The gravitic cascade device, as it was called, manipulated localized gravity fields, creating rippling distortions capable of tearing through even the most advanced shields. It was a gamble, untested and volatile, but humanity had no other choice. The device was loaded onto a heavily armored ship, piloted by a volunteer crew that knew their mission would likely end in death. As the Draken fleet advanced, the ship made a direct charge towards Zorath's flagship, drawing fire from the surrounding cruisers. Against all odds, they reached the heart of the fleet and activated the weapon. A shockwave of gravitational force rippled outward, tearing through Draken's ships like paper. Shields collapsed, hulls buckled, and dozens of ships were left drifting, powerless, in the void. Zorath's flagship survived, but only just. The once imposing vessel bore deep scars, its systems barely functioning. For the first time in his long and brutal reign, Zorath tasted the bitterness of humiliation. As his ship limped away from the battlefield, the cheers of humanity echoed across their networks. Against all odds, they had struck a blow that would be remembered for generations. Back aboard his flagship, Zorath seethed with rage. His arrogance had led him to underestimate humanity, and now, his reputation as the galaxy's most fearsome conqueror was in question. He lashed out at his advisors, dismissing those who dared suggest his tactics were flawed. "This is not a failure," he roared. "This is a setback. They will not win." But cracks were forming within the Draken Imperium. In the shadowed halls of Zorath's command chamber, his advisors whispered among themselves. They had seen the reports, witnessed the losses, and heard the warnings from the Galactic Council. Zorath's pride had blinded him to the threat humanity posed, and now, their empire was paying the price. One advisor, a cunning strategist named Vecker, finally broke the silence. "My king," he began cautiously, "perhaps it is time to reassess our approach. Humanity's resourcefulness is proving problematic. We may need to consider an alternative strategy." Zorath's eyes blazed with fury as he turned on Vecker. "Do you suggest we retreat? That we admit defeat to this insignificant species?" "No, my king," Vecker replied, bowing his head. "But the Council warned us of their unpredictability. We ignored them. Perhaps it is time to consider what they meant. Humanity is not like the others we have conquered. They do not fear death as we expect them to. If we are to crush them, we must first understand them." Zoratha's silence was deafening. For a moment, the command chamber was still, the only sound the faint hum of the damaged ship's systems. Then, with a snarl, he dismissed his council. "Leave me! All of you!" As his advisors filed out, Zorath stared out at the stars, his reflection shimmering in the cracked viewport. His pride demanded vengeance, but for the first time, doubt crept into his mind. He had underestimated humanity, and now, he wondered if he truly understood the enemy he faced. The turning point had arrived. Across Earth and its colonies, humanity stood united like never before. Leaders from every corner of the globe pooled their resources, shared intelligence, and laid out a single, audacious goal: take the fight to Zorath. No longer content with mere survival, humanity was preparing to launch a counteroffensive that would strike at the very heart of the Draken Imperium. In underground bunkers and orbiting stations, plans were finalized. Engineers like Ravi Patel worked tirelessly to retrofit human ships with the revolutionary gravitic cascade technology. Ravi's voice echoed through the hangar, issuing instructions to teams scrambling to modify the fleet. "We can't just hold them off anymore," he said, his determination clear. "We have to make them fear us." Commander Elena Sato, now the de facto leader of Earth's military forces, addressed a crowd of soldiers and civilians gathered at the main staging area. Her words carried the weight of humanity's collective resolve. "We've spent months defending our homes, our families. But today, we take the fight to them. Today, we remind the galaxy that humanity will not bow. Every resource, every sacrifice, has brought us to this moment. Let's finish what they started." The plan was as daring as it was dangerous. Humanity's fleet would split into two groups. The first would engage the Draken forces in a massive diversionary assault near the asteroid belt, drawing their attention and resources. The second, smaller fleet, equipped with stealth technology and the newly perfected gravitic cascade devices, would infiltrate deep into Draken territory. Their target, Zoratha's primary command base orbiting a resource-rich moon, a linchpin of his campaign. The first phase began with a thunderous battle in the asteroid belt. Human ships, heavily outnumbered but fiercely determined, maneuvered with precision through the rocky expanse. Draken ships pursued, confident in their superior firepower, only to fall victim to humanity's cunning. Using the asteroids as cover, human pilots executed daring ambushes, deploying mines disguised as debris and creating deadly choke points. Captain Marisol Vega, now commanding a squadron of elite fighters, led one such ambush. Her squad lured a Draken cruiser into a narrow asteroid channel, where it was unable to evade a barrage of projectiles and explosive charges. "You wanted a fight," she said grimly over the comms, watching the enemy vessel disintegrate. "You've got one." As the Draken fleet struggled to adapt, the second phase of the plan unfolded. The stealth fleet, cloaked in experimental camouflage, slipped past the chaos and headed straight for Zoratha's command base. Among them was Ravi, who had insisted on accompanying the mission to ensure the gravitic cascade devices worked as intended. "If this fails," he told Maya-chun before leaving, "we don't get another chance." The infiltration team reached the Draken base undetected, their ships gliding silently through the void. The base itself was a sprawling structure of black metal and glowing red conduits, a symbol of Zoratha's dominance. But tonight, it was vulnerable. The humans deployed their gravitic cascade devices strategically, targeting the base's power generators and defensive systems. As the devices activated, the base was thrown into chaos. Gravity distortions rippled through its structure, disabling shields and tearing through critical infrastructure. Human strike teams, equipped with scavenged Draken weaponry, stormed the base, overwhelming its defenders with a combination of brute force and tactical precision. Inside the command center, Zoratha's fury boiled over. Reports of the base's failure flooded in, each one a reminder of his own arrogance. "How?" he roared, slamming a clawed fist onto his throne. "How are they doing this?" His desperation grew as humanity's counteroffensive gained momentum. Across the battlefield, Draken forces were retreating, their lines breaking under the relentless assault. In the asteroid belt, Elena Sato's forces dealt a crippling blow, destroying two of Zoratha's largest dreadnoughts. The tide of the war had shifted. But victory came at a cost. The battles were brutal, and humanity paid for every inch of progress with blood. On the bridge of her flagship, Elena received reports of heavy losses. One of her closest allies, Captain Vega, had gone down in a blaze of glory, taking a Draken carrier with her. "We knew the price," Elena murmured, her voice heavy with grief. "We'll honor them by finishing this." As the strike team secured the Draken base, Ravi's team prepared for the final move, deploying a massive gravitic cascade device aimed directly at the station's core. The countdown began, but the Drakens, desperate to salvage their position, launched a counterattack. Ravi and the strike team found themselves pinned down, their escape route cut off. "We're not going to make it," one soldier muttered, firing at the advancing enemy. Ravi, clutching a detonator, shook his head. "We don't have to. We just need to make sure this works." He activated his comms, addressing the fleet above. "This is Patel. The device is armed. Finish the mission." The human ships, realizing what was about to happen, began their retreat. Moments later, the gravitic cascade device detonated. The shockwave tore through the Draken base, shattering its structure and sending debris spiraling into space. Zoratha's command center, once a symbol of his power, was obliterated in an instant. The loss was catastrophic for the Draken Imperium. Zorath, though alive, was left humiliated and powerless. His fleet, scattered and demoralized, retreated into deep space. Humanity, battered but unbroken, stood victorious. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted. The war was far from over, but this victory was a turning point. Humanity had proven not only their resilience but their ability to take the offensive and win. Standing on the deck of her flagship, Elena Sada looked out at the stars. "We're not just survivors," she said. "We're warriors. And they'll never underestimate us again." Zoratha's forces, battered and broken, drifted in disarray across the void, but the alien king himself refused to concede. The destruction of his command base had been a devastating blow, yet his pride burned hotter than ever. Isolated and desperate, Zorath devised one final plan, an all-out assault on Earth. It was not a move born of strategy, but of sheer vengeance. If he could not dominate humanity, he would destroy them entirely. His remaining fleet, though diminished, was still formidable. Massive warships, dark and angular, bristled with weaponry as they emerged from hyperspace above Earth. The skies turned crimson as Zorath unleashed the full fury of his arsenal, targeting cities, military installations, and even natural landmarks. The invasion was chaotic and merciless, a testament to Zoratha's desperation to leave his mark on the species that had humiliated him. On Earth, alarms blared as humanity scrambled to respond. Elena Sato stood at the helm of humanity's hastily regrouped fleet, her face set with grim determination. "This is it," she said, addressing her commanders. "We've beaten him before, and we'll beat him again. Today, we show the galaxy who we are." The battle that followed was nothing short of apocalyptic. Zoratha's ships descended through the atmosphere, their weapons raining destruction upon the planet below. Humanity's fleet, a patchwork of salvaged Draken vessels and retrofitted human designs, met them head-on. The skies above Earth were a tapestry of fire and chaos as ships engaged in furious dogfights. On the ground, anti-aircraft batteries lit up the heavens, their missiles finding their marks with unerring precision. Humanity's strategy was both bold and unorthodox. While the bulk of their fleet engaged Zoratha's forces directly, a smaller strike team, led by Captain Maya Chin, infiltrated Zoratha's flagship. Their objective: take down the alien king himself. Maya, who had risen to prominence during the war, embodied humanity's indomitable spirit. "We didn't come this far to fail now," she said, rallying her team as they boarded the enemy vessel. Inside the flagship, Zorath sat upon his throne, surrounded by the shattered remnants of his empire. His advisors had abandoned him, his fleet was crumbling, yet his arrogance remained unshaken. He welcomed the human strike team with a cruel smile, his towering form framed by the glowing red light of his war room. "You think you've won?" he snarled. Your victory will be ashes when I am done with you. The confrontation was brutal. Zorith, despite his size and strength, was no mere brute. He was a cunning warrior, and his personal guards were fearsome opponents. But humanity's ingenuity and sheer determination proved to be his undoing. Maya and her team, armed with experimental weapons designed to exploit the weaknesses of Draken physiology, fought with everything they had. The battle was intense, but in the end, it was Zorith's arrogance that sealed his fate. Believing himself invincible, he underestimated the human's resolve, and paid the ultimate price. With a final, devastating blow, Zorith fell. His massive frame crumpled to the ground, his crimson eyes dimming as he gasped his last. Maya stood over him, bloody but victorious. You should have listened, she said, her voice heavy with both triumph and exhaustion. Above Earth, the destruction of Zorith's flagship sent shockwaves through the remaining Draken forces. Leaderless and demoralized, they broke rank, retreating into deep space. Humanity, battered but unbowed, had won. The skies cleared, revealing a planet scarred but still standing, a testament to humanity's resilience. In the days that followed, the Galactic Council reconvened. This time, their chamber was filled with a different energy. Representatives from countless species watched in silence as Commander Elena Sato entered, flanked by Maya and other human leaders. Humanity had not only survived, they had risen. The Council, once dismissive of humans, now spoke of them with a mix of respect and fear. A Zenthian diplomat addressed the assembly. The Draken Imperium thought humanity weak. They believed their conquest would be swift and absolute. They were wrong. Let this serve as a warning to all: humanity is not to be underestimated. The Council formally recognized humanity's strength, granting them a seat among the galaxy's powers. But the victory was bittersweet. Humanity had fought for survival, but at great cost. Cities lay in ruins, countless lives had been lost, and the scars of war would linger for generations. Even so, there was a newfound sense of unity among the people of Earth and their colonies. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, more determined than ever to shape their destiny among the stars. In the quiet aftermath, Ravi Patel stood alone on a hillside overlooking his devastated hometown. He clutched a small photograph of his family, now gone, lost in the chaos of the invasion. Tears streamed down his face, but there was a spark of hope in his eyes. He had fought for their memory, for their future, and for the chance to rebuild. Around him, survivors worked tirelessly to restore what had been lost, their resilience a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Elena Sato's voice echoed across a global broadcast, reaching every corner of Earth and beyond. This war has shown us the depths of our strength, and the cost of our unity. We have proven that we are more than survivors. We are builders, dreamers, and warriors. They underestimated us once. They won't make that mistake again. And with that, humanity's story shifted. No longer were they seen as a fledgling species struggling for survival. They were a force to be reckoned with, a reminder to the galaxy that even the smallest ember can ignite an unstoppable flame. The stars awaited them, and they were ready to rise.